I'm sitting here with Brianna Jevnager from MediVisuals and High Impact. MediVisuals and High Impact, you guys are, and tell me if I got this right, a full service litigation visual studio, medical illustrations, doing 3D animations, crash reconstruction, timelines, interactive presentations, trial graphics, and any related litigation support for complex civil cases. That's a lot.
It is, and we
That's
are
pretty cool.
continuing to grow and hoping to further grow that as well.
Perfect. Perfect. The main thing that the main service that you guys are fulfilling is to translate technical data into more consumable data for not only juries, but people involved in mediations, depositions, opposing counsel, really the whole kind of painting a picture that's more consumable to the human psyche. Is that kind of correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit today about your process, how you guys do what you do. And you guys do a lot of these, right? I think I heard at one point you do nearly 3,000 a year,
That is right.
visualizations.
And
That is
we've
really,
been,
really cool.
the two companies have been in business, both of them for over 40 plus years. So yeah, we've been doing
Okay.
this for a long time. We've seen, everything there is to see.
40 plus years. You guys must be the big player in the market. You must be the Coca-Cola of trial visuals.
Exactly.
Nice. We'll have to get a visual to represent your market penetration. That would be good. All right, so I'm going to start at the beginning. You guys describe your work as powerful visuals for every phase of litigation. So when an attorney first brings you a matter or case, um, how does that process start? Like when someone's introduced to MediVisuals and High Impact for the first time, what are kind of the first steps?
Yeah, so great question. When an attorney first comes to us and brings us a case, we really start by collaborating with them to understand the facts and identify the most important message that they need to resonate with their audience. So typically, this depends on a few things, where they are in the litigation process, the intended audience, and the budget. So for a demand package, for example, illustrations might make the most sense for them to incorporate. Whereas if they come to us with a complex, polytrauma case that's going to be going to trial, then obviously a 3D animation or interactive presentation might make the most sense for them.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I
That's
feel
really
like I
cool.
just answered. Was that your question number one?
That was great. Yes, that was a
Okay.
perfect start to that. But this is gonna how I'm gonna expand on it with this next question.
Okay. Okay.
So historically, what have these trial attorneys been able to bring to the courtroom prior to having a resource like you guys? Are they bringing spreadsheets? Are they bringing medical records? Are they trying to highlight a piece of paper and say, here's where the issue is happening? How are they,
Yeah. So
how have you guys disrupted the way the storytelling has happened?
Yeah, so great question. I feel like a lot of attorneys historically, prior to coming to us for visuals, will do something similar to what you had described. They may actually get blow-ups of the physical document with a portion of it highlighted. They may just blow up the actual black and white images on a board. But to a lay audience, that might not make sense, and they won't be able to fully appreciate the injury or know what they're looking at. So
Okay.
that's where we come in, and we can actually provide more clarity when it comes to those things with either colorizing or enhancing that visual or the X-ray. That way, a lay audience can understand and appreciate the injury.
That's pretty cool. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Now, we started talking about the process when they come to you and you start to collaborate. How does
Mhm.
it get into the technical aspect of your team? And I'm sure you guys have done this. I'm sure to you guys it feels, as common as brushing our teeth to the rest of us. But what are some of the, without giving away the secret sauce, but what are some of the secret sauce as to how you translate something? And maybe give us an example of what some popular data to visual translation types there are.
Yeah, so I know I mentioned, colorized films, and that is something that we do quite often.
Mhm.
So what we'll actually request from the beginning is we'll want to review the client's medical records. So we'll want to take a look at the radiology reports, the actual imaging studies themselves, so any X-rays, MRIs, CTs, as well as any operative reports.
Okay.
So we'll actually take that, we'll review the documents in depth. And for example, if there is a hip fracture, fracture, let's say. As I mentioned, to a lay audience, they might not really be able to appreciate or know what they're looking at. So that's where if we illustrate on top of that actual film, so we take that x-ray, we illustrate on top of it to show the fracture, or we just add some color enhancement, red to it to show that fracture line, that really will resonate more with a jury for them to be able to appreciate and see what the radiologist saw on that film.
Okay. Okay. And then it's got to be a fine balance, right? Between making something look super duper polished and telling the actual story. How does your creative team kind of walk that line?
Yeah, so that's a good question too. I think it really comes down to, the story that the client wants to tell while also remaining true to the facts of the case. So we pride ourselves in everything being, grounded in evidence and supported by the underlying records, as I mentioned. So everything the team creates will actually be based off of the records. So for example, if we're showing anterior cervical discectomy infusion procedure, that the steps that we're going to be showing and creating in that visual are going to be based directly and taken out of what is outlined in that operative report. So at the end of the day, hopefully everything that we create is foundationally accurate and will be held up in court. Another thing we always recommend to our clients is getting their experts involved early on. And obviously on the back end, when we send the proofs, we want their experts to bless those as well, because ultimately when it comes down to them using them in trial, the experts will be the one attesting to them.
That's really cool. That's great. I'm glad you covered that, because that was gonna be my next question. Like, how do you make sure that what's being done is actually going to pass muster? And that's really, really cool. Let's talk about crash reconstruction for a second.
Yeah.
When you're pulling in engineers, what's the difference between a defensible crash animation video and a generic kind of reenactment video?
Yeah. So kind of going back to what I said, we pride ourselves in everything being based off of, the supporting underlying records and grounded in evidence. But really what we can provide that a basic reenactment animation can't is, the basic animation can show what happened, whereas we can provide that additional storytelling and detail to kind of position a juror to appreciate it, and almost as if they were watching it in real time, or there, as a bystander. So that's, I think, the storytelling aspect of it and the additional context and detail is where we can provide that additional support.
And you guys even will offer the service to present your visuals to mock juries, right? Or focus groups.
That is correct. Yeah.
And get their feedback before it actually is used in actual real life situations.
Exactly. And we've seen attorneys, use some of these visuals in their focus groups and then get some very insightful feedback on, where they may need to pivot or adjust, or where the jury needs additional clarification or context. Maybe they're hung up on this one part, but maybe they don't fully understand it yet. So we need to tailor and adjust our visuals to better, portray that part of the case and make sure that they fully understand the facts.
Do you have a good horror story you want to share with me, where some visuals got presented and the focus group was like, nah?
Well, we recently actually had a focus group where they came back and they didn't side. So it was on the plaintiff side, and they didn't actually side with the plaintiff. The attorney at the end of it was like, this was actually very helpful. This makes it so we know that we're prepared for what, this potential jury might think. And so now we know that we need to pivot and adjust kind of our case theme and how we're going to go about this case. So, I think those can prove to be very insightful and are really pivotal in, your case theme and how you're going to take this to trial.
Very, very cool. I got a few more questions here. So
Sure.
For us at ExpertPays, when we're bringing our attorney clients in to use a product like MediVisuals and High Impact, for someone who's referring an attorney or a law firm to you guys, what are some of the key things you want the potential clients to think about before they actually get on the phone with you or have their initial consultation with your team? What should they be bringing to the table? What are some background prep they can be doing before the first connection?
Yeah. So I think if they could come to the table with, really, what is the most important thing that they need to convey in this?
Mhm.
So is it that your client sustained this, injury that's invisible? Sometimes attorneys will say, it's this invisible injury. So on the outside, someone just looking at a person might think they're not injured. They're continuing to live their daily life. They seem like they're functioning just fine, but they really may be suffering internally. So I think they need to come to us with understanding what is the most important thing I need my audience to understand,
Right.
and what is the most important fact of this case. And so if they can come to us with that, and then obviously have some sort of budget in mind. So budget is, something we'll talk about a lot. And I always like to say we can really meet any budgetary, needs or constraints on any case.
Okay.
We have things at all different price points.
Okay.
But just coming to us up front, kind of knowing that and knowing what's most important to visually show and convey to an audience will be super beneficial to our conversation. Now, that's okay if, they don't have that. Sometimes we have clients coming to us saying, I have this case. I think it makes sense to create some visuals for it, but I really need your help. And
Good.
that's really where we pride ourselves in having our expertise in doing this and being in the field for so long, is we really provide, that consultative, collaborative approach.
I like that. I really like that. And your expertise it sounds second to none. It sounds like your team is good and massive. Just really out of curiosity, how do you source your creatives?
Yeah.
I know I didn't give you this question in advance, but I'm just kind of wondering, are these people coming from like Disney? Are they animators? Are
Yeah,
they just
so they're kind of from all over. I would say majority of our medical illustration team has masters in biomedical visualization.
okay?
So they are well versed in, seeing this and illustrating it. Our animation team kind of comes from all backgrounds. So some of them are, medically trained and have that biomedical visualization degree. Others, for example, on our forensic team have different backgrounds. And we actually have someone on our team who, yeah, did kind of come from, the like Pixar world or the movie
Nice.
world of things. And he actually worked on one of the Harry Potter movies. So I always like
Oh,
to brag
cool.
about that.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah. So they all have kind of interesting backgrounds and cool things that they've done in their previous lives.
So if a lawyer does have a case, or they think they have a case, they want to start the process. What are they're looking at their data, they're looking at the medical records, they think it's a pretty healthy case. They've done their time, they've done their due diligence. What's the best first step in not only working with MediVisuals and high impact, or what are the questions that they should be asking if they're looking to source a service like yours?
Um,
That will
so
be good.
I think there's a lot of important questions to be asking. So obviously credentials play, are hugely important and play a big role in this.
Right.
We obviously never want an attorney to be in a situation where they're spending money on putting some visuals together and then they're not able to use them in court due to factual inaccuracies or whatever it may be.
Uh,
So as I, mentioned, our team is made up of certified medical illustrators and animators who have masters in this biomedical visualization. And ultimately, it comes down to, who the attorney feels the most comfortable with being kind of in the trenches with them, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
like to say that we're a partner with them. So I think when it comes to them, choosing a visual provider, they really have to see who is the best fit and who is going to be the one
Yeah.
that they can rely on, and kind of be a partner with them along the ride with their case.
Okay. So on that same front, how many of your attorney clients would you say are repeat buyers?
I would say a good chunk of them are. Statistically, I don't know off the top of my head, but
Okay.
I would say majority of our clients are repeat customers. They probably make up about 80% of our client base.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
If your case ever becomes cost prohibitive, you can always reach out to ExpertPays and explore some deferred payment options.
Perfect. Thank you, Brianna. This has
Yeah,
been
of
great.
course.
I appreciate it.